All right, tell you what, let's get started. This is the traffic operations breakout room for the Randall over I-90 project. First, thanks for everybody for taking time out of your evening to join us here tonight. I am Paul Plotis. I'm with Burns and McDonnell, and I'm the manager of the traffic portion of this project. I'll be running the chat, and so if you have any comments, type them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll turn on your mic to ask a question. Tim will be telling you a little bit about some of the details of the study, but the main reason we're here tonight is to answer your questions. So Tim will do a brief introduction, and then we'll get into any questions or comments that you have about the project. And actually, if you have comments, feel free to add those to the chat. We will be including all comments and questions in the final report with responses. So whether you put it in the chat or you fill out the comment form on the project website, either way works great. And with that, I will turn it over to Tim.
All right, thanks, Paul. And yeah, so again, I'd just like to reiterate what Paul said. Paul will be monitoring the chat window, so if there's any comments or questions initially, feel free to type them in. I'll have just a handful of slides to go through, just to talk a little bit about the traffic operations slides, but then really after that, it's just to open it up for any comments and discussion. And so without further ado, it's basically for the Randall over 90 traffic operations study. The basis of the study was set from data collected in the October of 2019. So this was pre-COVID time, the impacts that that's had on traffic. This current day, as we call it, traffic conditions was then projected out to the future year, 2050. This was done using the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or in short, CMAP, travel demand modeling. And what that does is it takes into account things like population trends, socioeconomic projections, and what have you, to really try to get a better grasp on what the future holds for traffic demand. And so not only do we want to consider what traffic there is out there today, we want to consider what sort of traffic demand that there'll be in the future. And so in summarizing the traffic analysis for Randall Road, one thing that's expected is that delay in travel time is expected to increase. So this really comes from the expected growth in the area. Like what was mentioned in the main group, is that there's lots of development currently occurring throughout Randall Road. And so with that comes traffic. So one portion of this is that some of this growth is to the extent of where select locations could increase in traffic by upwards of 50% by the time 2050. Couple of observations we had was that westbound I-90 traffic from Randall, or going to Randall Road from I-90, we saw multiple occurrences where this traffic backed up onto mainline I-90. And so with this, there's a handful of major traffic issues that were identified. One of those being that congestion was not only during the peak hours, the morning and evening commutes, but it was also throughout the day. And then also, even the slightest disruption in traffic, it could be longer durations of left turn arrows to accommodate left turning vehicles. Those could have long-standing impacts to the corridor with those through volumes. And with this congestion, another symptom of that is where people were searching for alternative routes. We were able to look at the data and identify down at the south end at Big Timber, for example, is that anywhere upwards of 75% of people traveling from Big Timber to northbound Randall Road, they were diverting to other roads like Elf Lane just to bypass traffic. And so with all this congestion, a big driver of that as well is the Advocate Sherman Hospital of just really wanting to be able to provide a corridor that the emergency vehicles can drive through as well, and that they can provide their services. So through this portion of the this ranking system, each of the options presented, they were, as a part of the larger group, they're analyzed in comparison to one another. And really this was done to figure out how each would perform with both today's traffic as well as the traffic in the future, what's being expected. This category also considered interim year 2035 conditions, and it used measures from modeling such as travel time and traffic queuing. And so in order to receive a high ranking, an option must provide significant improvement in traffic operations and address the high levels of traffic volumes. And then options that did not receive as high of rankings, those did not address the high levels of turning traffic volumes, and they, in some cases, resulted in queuing and throughout the corridor, as well as from the westbound off-ramp from I-90. And those were noted as well. And so there were a few options, as was noted in the larger group, that they did not perform better than the no build condition, as if nothing was changed, I guess, from the current layout. And so those options were flagged as fatally flawed, as they did not meet the purpose and need for the project. And so therefore they weren't proposed to be carried forward as a feasible option on that. And so really that's all I have as a sort of base update for the traffic operations, and really just want to open it up to any questions. I guess you can ask Paul, see if there's any questions spooled up.
Yes.
To chat.
Yes, actually, we've got a couple of questions here. One from Walter Grom, and I apologize if I pronounce anybody's name incorrectly. But the comment is, I don't want to mix issues, but how has construction of the Long Meadow Bridge been factored into traffic from McHenry County? And Tim, I don't know if you have it handy, but the date of the count that we had taken. So there's two parts to this question. One is that we collected traffic data early on in the project, and when we do collect traffic data, there's always going to be construction somewhere, or there are always issues. And typically, as long as there are no crashes in the vicinity of the intersection, we do try to account for other things happening. So and other construction projects outside of our area, but those traffic counts are the no build scenario. Most everything that we're talking about here is based on the projected conditions. And so Tim, I'll pass that off to you, and you can talk about the projected conditions and then when those counts were taken.
Sure. And so I guess the projected conditions, I started with the October data. I don't have the exact date handy of when the counts were performed. I can get that shortly.
Well, October 2019.
2019, yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
2019 of October. And the future projections, basically from the CMAP travel demand model, what they do is they provide throughout select points throughout the network and say, on average, here's the rate at which these roadways are projected to grow into the future. And their planning year is 2050. And so that's the primary reason why the year 2050 was noted for the traffic volumes. And so with that, we're able to grow the traffic for what would be expected in the future.
Yeah, and the traffic model is for a very large area, and it's a very complicated model that takes a lot of things into consideration, and they do try to calibrate that model so that it is the most accurate tool that we have for projecting what traffic will be in the future. Another question is from Tony Johnson. My suggestion is to add an additional entrance exit from Point Boulevard eastward onto McLean Boulevard. And I believe that's another entrance onto I-90. This will take much of Point Boulevard traffic completely off Randall Road. This idea would be consistent with other service roads that run along I-90, having an entrance exit on each end of it. And I believe Matt responded to this, and I don't know if you can you summarize what Matt had said, Tim?
No, at least for the north end concepts, one concept was to have an overpass at Point Boulevard to limit the traffic signal at Point and Randall Road. That was to the west side, however. So I do understand, I guess, what's being pointed out about the east side. And I guess my suggestion to that would be that to log it into the survey. I don't, at least myself, I would need to ask Matt to see about what considerations on the sort of coming to the traffic side of what building some infrastructure to the east would entail on that. But if it's a part of the survey, and I saw a note from Leslie that this was going to be documented, so we can take a look into that.
Okay, moving on to the next one, from Anthony Stuckey. Naively, I'll advocate for team grade, separate everything. Why should these intersections remain at grade with signals versus building more overpasses and separating east-west traffic entirely from north-south traffic? And you know, it as Matt had alluded to too, is the cost of separating grade everything certainly will be a factor in the eventual selected solution. All right, from Jessica Carroll, how were you able to determine that traffic was using alternate routes from Big Timber? Go ahead, Tim. I'll let you.
Sure.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was also a part of the data collection side. There was early on, so in tandem to collecting the raw traffic counts that were done through video cameras and what have you. There was, as a part of the project, we used a company called Streetlight to get I guess cell phone data as well to try and determine paths and what have you. And so basically what that provides is it's a high level look at, in general, for roadway segments, here's where their data is suggesting people comes to and goes from. And from there, you're able to sort of set up what we call origin destination pairs. But in short, really what that means is people came from this area of the network, and then here's the route on average and where they ended up, if that makes sense. Paul, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so it kind of in big picture is what they do, what that Streetlight data, those folks do is they follow telephones and cell phones. And so when you've actually, quite honestly, what they do is that when you accept an app, when you say yes to all that little fine print, you're agreeing to that the phone company can sell your data to companies like Streetlight Data, and then they follow the phones. And what they tell us is that what percentage of traffic that's going from point A to point B takes different routes. And so with that, we know that a percentage of the traffic, a percentage of the phones, therefore a percentage of the traffic are taking those alternate routes. And that's kind of how that works. All right. Again, so we're about at the halfway point here. And just wanted to remind everybody, so what we're here for is really to answer any questions. At the 30-minute mark, we'll go back to the main room, but we'll try to answer all the questions here. If we don't get to all these questions, responding to these questions today, we will respond to them in writing in the report. And actually, whether we respond to them tonight or not, we will respond to all of these comments, any questions in the report itself. So moving on, Debbie Sosine, and again, I apologize if I mispronounce the names, but is the displaced left diamond similar to a CFI intersection concept?
In short, yes, it's very similar. The primary difference with the CFI to what we call the displaced left diamond is that unlike the CFI, the displaced left handles both left turn movements. So in this case, it would be the left turns for northbound Randall wanting to go west on I-90, as well as people from the west on I-90 wanting to go to northbound Randall. So there's two interactions there rather than just the one that typically a CFI provides, and that's ultimately where the difference is.
All right. Oh, and Tony Johnson, I would connect Point Boulevard to McLean Boulevard. Has nothing to do with I-90. So I believe he's saying is continue the frontage road down to McLean. Okay. And I don't recall what the traffic model had. So typically the traffic model will have those connections made if they're in the city's master plan or the county's master plan. So if that road is connected, it will be connected in the model to represent what the projections are in 2050. I didn't actually look at it that closely to see. Actually, I don't know if we even got that information from the model for that. So we'll have to look into that one, Tony, a bit more to figure out what if that connection for that frontage road was made. But again, the majority of the traffic on Randall Road, actually, so the traffic that's on Randall Road is either heading to a high percentage of it's heading to I-90, or they're heading north and south. And I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, we'll look into that one a little bit more to get you a little bit better answer for that. But that is a bit off of our project on Randall itself. But it is, it is related though. From Kelly, question is, after looking at the options again tonight, I will reiterate that the option to move San Filippo traffic to a U-turn to enter our property is extremely problematic. And Kelly, I don't know if you're still on the in this breakout room, but which property is yours?
San Filippo.
Oh, San Filippo. Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, just to the east of Al.
Gotcha. I was reading too many messages. I need to not get distracted.
Re-looking at that tonight, I mean, I don't know how we would effectively route 1,000 employees every day making a U-turn like that.
Fair enough.
Not to mention we've got, the tenants in that office building, which is another several hundred people.
All right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, fair. I mean, I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, I mean, that's and that is something that will definitely have to be considered with that alternative.
And I would suggest too, if you wouldn't mind on the survey side of including, say, if the employee count and information like that, that detail into the comment too would be helpful.
Okay. Is the survey coming out after this meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I know it's on the website for sure, but actually, Kelly, if you've got time to add that into the chat so that we have a written record, and actually, but we also have this recorded, so we actually have that data that way. So we've got that. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, if there's a way for us to contact you, Kelly, if you registered and
Yeah,
that-
we had a meeting with Paul, a couple weeks ago.
okay.
So
All right. Very good. Okay. All right, Anthony Stuckey, how often do apps like Waze steer drivers to use side streets and avoid these intersections completely? We have, I mean, they are completely independent of what we do. And, whether it's Waze or, Google Maps or any of those kinds of things, they will route people to the quickest path. And yes, they will take people out onto these alternate routes that aren't necessarily the way that we want them to go.
And I guess I would add to that too, sort of the example that I referenced on the slides about the south end of Big Timber. And that is one thing we checked, because since it was pre-COVID, we were able to see the Google traffic sort of projected travel times or what have you if you're planning a trip. And so one example was on Big Timber, setting a pin during the peak hour west of Randall Road and then saying to I-90. And often it would suggest to go through Alf Lane just because that was the fastest option, and which leads to part of the reason why we were seeing so much diversion as well.
Okay, we've got about just over 5 minutes left here. Jen Morales, the survey link is on the website. Thank you for confirming that. Kelly, you told us about the 1,000 daily employees. Very good. 1,300 actually. Okay. Debbie Sosine, when is the timeline you are looking at start building, and what is the estimated length of construction? Tim, you wanna field that one?
Sure. I don't have, I guess, concrete timeline information, but to at least where the county stands right now is there's currently no funding secured for the construction of the improvements as a part of the PEL. But what the PEL does is it helps position the county well for the pursuit of federal dollars in the future. And so while the county didn't have to say do a PEL study, they felt the benefit to go ahead and performing the PEL for the sake of securing federal funding. So no hard timelines yet that I'm aware of, but that's sort of the thought process and transitioning into the PEL.
Okay, that is the last question that I have, that I see. So if there's any other questions, we've got 4 more minutes. Okay. Excellent. Just tell me what. Let me. Oh, okay. One just came in from Jessica Carroll. How did you determine the weighting for the alternatives?
And so the weighting for, I guess, I can speak more about how the weighting for the traffic operations between options was performed. I guess the weighting between, say, traffic operations to noise to safety, what have you, that was done as a part of the full design team in coordination with the county. And I believe, yeah, so maybe Matt Papernick or the county would be the better suited to answer between options. But at least on the traffic operations side, really what we did was, so we had traffic models for each of these options. And really it was aimed to put an apples to apples comparison for what was expected traffic wise in the future. And then measure anticipated, I guess, variables such as anticipated travel time, what sort of queues would be generated in traffic, as well as essentially how much traffic volume or how many vehicles each of these options could handle, like what their capacity is. And so really the traffic operation scoring was based on that. And so it became a pretty straightforward metric to follow of if you have shorter travel times and higher levels of traffic able to process or handle, then it would score better, and vice versa for lower scores. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, and I just forwarded that question to the main room. So with that, that takes us just shy of 30 minutes, and so we can, let's all just go back to the main room, and we'll see you there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.